Coming up today on Zestology, one of the things I get asked more than anything is testing. Where's a good place to go for testing? How do I get tested? What should I get tested for? Hopefully today's podcast will provide some answers. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Well, hello and welcome back to the podcast all about energy, vitality, and motivation. I'm Tony Wrighton, and currently walking to the station to go to get some allergy testing and have a consultation with the wellness people. Been really looking forward to this. And obviously I've spoken about histamine intolerance quite a bit on this podcast. That is a condition that I've suffered with for about 25 years and didn't even realise until, well, between 5 and 10 years ago. And the symptoms of histamine intolerance are very closely related to allergy symptoms, the sort of things that you get, in springtime, seasonal allergies. So here I am this morning going to the wellness people, and you may have seen before advertised tests where you can get your blood looked at for various intolerances. So it might say, you've got an intolerance to tomato or shellfish or whatever it might be. That, I think, is a very simplistic version of what's going to happen today. And part of the reason for recording this podcast is I don't really know what's going to happen. It's going to be really exciting. It's a very, very advanced clinic in London. And if you are one of those people, and I know from running this side project of mine, the Histamine Intolerance site, if you are one of those people who just has a bit of a sort of a niggle and you're not quite sure what's going on with it, and something's not quite right and you can't work it out, maybe getting this sort of testing at somewhere like the wellness people in London could be a good idea. So that is a roundabout way of telling you what I'm going to do today. This is going to be an on-the-scene podcast. I'm currently walking to Gunnersbury Station in West London on a beautiful day. And we're going to go and record a podcast, going to ask some questions while I'm there. Then I think we're going to come back and record the rest of the podcast a couple of weeks later, but we'll edit it all into one listen. So over the course of the next half hour or so, you will learn everything about this process and maybe have some ideas for how you could get some testing done as well. I spoke at a festival last weekend, and everybody always comes and asks me about testing, genetic testing, allergy testing, histamine testing, and I really hope this can help. If you are one of my listeners who does suffer from histamine intolerance, or you think you might, this podcast is going to be particularly interesting for you because it is something that you may want to look into. On my own journey, I sort of know which foods generally affect me worst, but there's a lot of foods with a grey area. For example, papaya and pineapple, dreadful. They actually are not high in histamine, but they are histamine liberators, which means they just don't feel great. But I haven't got it written down in black and white, so it's going to be so interesting to see what they come up with and what they do. They do loads of other stuff at the wellness people as well. They do all these cryotherapy treatments as well. So I'll have a chat to them about that as well. We're going to post on Instagram a bit as well. And yeah, it's fun doing stuff like this, isn't it? It's sort of very biohacky, very cutting edge. And this sort of testing isn't for everybody. And, I've not done this sort of thing before. But that's why I wanted to record a podcast by it. So very excited. Let's head off to the wellness people. I'm going to put my phone away now because I'm getting some strange looks as I get close to the station. And I'll speak to you again in a sec. I'm recording now. I know this is not the actual top of the conversation, but I have gone down the Sachin Panda rabbit hole. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
absolutely.
He's been on my podcast as well, actually.
Oh, wow.
And I asked him about coffee, and he sort of said, "Oh, it's all right. You can have a coffee." So that was like a green light for me, anyway.
Yeah, my husband can't live without a black coffee in the morning, so we're trying to do this together. And for him, that black coffee kind of sees him through till lunchtime. So
yeah, me too. And actually, this probably isn't a good advert for intermittent fasting, but I sort of feel like I can eat anything after intermittent fasting. You can get away with so much if you intermittent fast.
It's true. Yeah.
Anyway, Roshni.
Yes.
So I call you Dr. Roshni or Roshni?
Just call me
Roshni.
It's fine.
Really excited about this. What can I expect? What are you going to be doing, and what are we going to be testing for?
Okay, so basically, I know that you suffer from histamine intolerance. And the main issue with people who have histamine intolerance is that their symptoms are very similar to those of allergies. Now, deciding if your symptoms are due to a true allergy is probably something that's really important, because then you know what you're dealing with. So I guess what we're hoping to get done today is just sift through, okay, is Tony allergic to X, Y, and Z, or is Tony having a histamine reaction to X, Y, and Z? So what we're going to do is an Ige Blood Test. It's a panel of almost 300 different allergens. It looks at lots of different food groups, from nuts to fruit and veg and meat and poultry. You just name it and it's on that list. And the aim for that is to kind of decide if it's a true allergy, as we said, or a histamine intolerance reaction.
That's perfect. And I was saying in the introduction to this podcast, so there's certain foods that I just know don't agree with me. For example, papaya and pineapple, which aren't histamine containing but histamine liberating, so they make the body produce histamine. Now I feel awful after papaya. It's taken me so long to work that out because I love papaya. And then there's other foods that I know to sort of avoid, like chocolate and various fermented foods and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And this is just so interesting to know, what's histamine, what's allergy, and having a bit more knowledge around food, because you can try and track it as much as you like, but it's quite hard to figure out, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It's really hard to figure out. And one of the difficulties is that with people who are histamine intolerant, it's usually due to the fact that they are low on the enzyme diamine oxidase, which breaks down histamine. So with normal people, when you eat a meal, the histamine releasing foods will release histamine, and that happens in everyone. It's not just in people who are histamine intolerant, but because normal people have the right amount of diamine oxidase, they're able to process that histamine quickly, efficiently, and kind of shunt it out of the body, so that you don't actually result in any symptoms. Whereas with people who've got the histamine intolerance, it's an inefficient kind of process, which means they're not producing enough enzyme, it's not breaking down fast enough, it's staying in the system for much longer, and therefore has the opportunity to cause the symptoms, which are very similar to allergies.
It's so nice to meet a doctor who gets it. You realise you're going to be besieged by people with histamine intolerance after this. They're going to listen to this, I want to do this as well.
The thing is, for me, I don't like the idea of people just guessing. I think it's very important to be proactive, take control of your health, which, Tony, you've done amazingly well at. You've researched all of this, you've gone into it, you've done your elimination diets, you figured it out. That's amazing. And I think that's really important. When people start to guess at what they may or may not be allergic to, and then go down a rabbit hole with that, I think you find that you start eliminating a lot of things that might actually be good and nutritional, have really good nutritional value, and that's not ideal, really.
Yeah, and I mean, over the last 25 years, I've pretty much tried every diet before I came to histamine intolerance.
I can imagine.
And you think you're being healthy eating avocados and papaya, don't you? And and then you feel bad the next day and you can't figure it out. Sometimes I was guilty of having too much red wine as well. But, often you think you're actually the vegan bowl at a restaurant actually has loads of beans and sort of high histamine stuff in it that can really affect you.
And, there's been a real trend encouraging people to have a lot of fermented foods and things like that, because it helps with the whole gut microbiome and pro and prebiotics and things like this. But what people don't realize is that with the fermented foods as well, there is a lot of histamine releasing foods. So sauerkraut and kimchi, stuff like that, is probably not good for a person with histamine intolerance. So it's just kind of finding that balance, isn't it?
I've made my own yogurt.
How does it work?
I've done it 4 or 5 times.
Yep.
I had one disaster. I took the lid off and it was sort of blue.
Oh,
but apart from that, it's been good. I emptied in some histamine-friendly probiotics in there, and it was quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite fun to try.
Absolutely.
It was a real painful process, but it was fun. Fun to try.
New skills you develop.
Yeah, exactly. And my main podcast is Zestology. I do have a histamine intolerance podcast as well, and I'll release this on both. But just there will be some people listening who are really interested in this but don't have histamine intolerance or don't think they do. Yeah. But presumably you have all sorts of people coming to see you for what we're going to do today.
So let me just kind of give you a demographic, because a person with an allergy can be very young and they can be very old. So there is no one that's excluded from this, because allergies can develop literally at any age in life. It doesn't mean that if you've eaten prawns your whole life, you may not be allergic to it as you get older, because our bodies change, our hormones change, our enzymes change, our immune system changes. And along with that, you can develop allergies at any age. So we find people kind of coming to us at different ages and saying, look, I had this, I've had it all my life, but now I'm reacting to it. And what do you think it is? And I think rather than guessing, like I said before, the best thing to do is do a comprehensive test, actually take blood, test for IgE, not IgG. I'll come back to why that's important. Yeah. And figure it out. Are you actually reacting to it? Or is it just kind of an intolerance? And when I say intolerance, when your immune system reacts to something, then it's an allergy. But if it's your gut, or if it's your enzymes, or if it's the kind of bacteria in your gut that's reacting to something, then it's a food intolerance. So that's kind of the main distinction between the two.
So, IgG and IgE.
Oh gosh. One of my pet peeves.
Okay.
So, there are lots and lots of tests out there that you can, kind of buy online or get a kit sent to your home, and they ask you to kind of do a little finger prick test or saliva or something like this. And what they're doing is testing for IgG. IgG is an antibody that is produced to everything that your body comes into contact with. So it might be a virus, like COVID. It might be a bacteria, it might be a food you've just eaten, it might be any number of things. And IgG is very, very non-specific, because if your IgG level is high to a certain type of food, it just means that it's a food that you have commonly and it has been eaten quite recently. It does not indicate an allergy.
Okay.
The antibody you need to be testing for is IgE, because IgE is only produced when a food or an allergen is considered foreign, and then it induces an allergic reaction and you have symptoms to it. So lots of people go out and do IgG tests for food intolerance and come back with a list as long as their arm. And in fact, they're not actually allergic to any one of those things. It's just foods that they commonly encounter or foods that they eat regularly.
Right, that's rubbish. So then they have to give up all the foods that they eat regularly.
Yeah, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
So if you look at the facts, it's IgE testing that you need to be doing.
Yeah. Good. So you're going to take my blood?
Yeah.
Should we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you happy for me to do it while we talk?
Yeah, let's just carry on recording. Yeah, if that's all right. Yeah. Okay. And so what do the result? We're going to, the second part of this podcast, we're going to record in about a week or two's time, aren't we?
Yeah.
When the results come back. What sort of thing can we expect in terms of the results? What sort of thing can I expect to see and you to tell me about?
So basically, what we'll do is we'll sit down for between 10 and 20 minutes and we'll go through the report. The report itself is 9 pages long, and the lab is very, very comprehensive as to how they produce the report. It covers all of those sections we talked about. It even covers things like grass pollens, tree pollens, bee venom, pets. It covers everything.
Wow.
So when I come back and talk to you, Tony, you're going to have a really good idea of what you are and are not allergic to.
Yeah.
As far as these things are concerned. So we would sit down, we'd go through it. There's a summary page, and the summary page would tell you the different categories that we've tested and which one of those have been flagged up. And it will give you an idea of your total IgE. Now, total IgE indicates how likely you are to be allergic to something, because that's the IgE that's circulating in your bloodstream. Yeah. So we'll go through those, and then we'll go through the specific sections and pick out the things that are actually causing a reaction.
Okay. I've just got a feeling my total IgE is going to be high.
Well, to be fair, sometimes things will surprise you. So I have patients coming in and they're saying, oh, I've been having bloating and I've had really bad bowel movements, and it's after I ate aubergine, and then we test for aubergine and their total IgE is completely normal.
Right.
Because it's more of an enzyme reaction, or your gut's not processing efficiently and it's not passing through quickly enough. So you might have a bit of bloating, but your immune system is not reacting to it. So you're not having kind of a systematic reaction from your immune system. It's just a gut. Yeah. Okay, so that's quite a distinction, isn't it? Yeah. Do you want me to put the microphone somewhere while we're doing this?
I think let's pop it down.
Okay, that's it. Let's go and I'll tell you what, Alison, would you be able to hold the mic while we do this? Because if we put it there, then it will clonk with the table. Thanks.
Yeah.
You just sort of hold the mic there, Alison.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
That's great.
There
Okay. Perfect. Are you okay with me doing
Yeah, absolutely. Are we able to carry on chatting while we do it?
Absolutely.
Are you able to multitask?
No problem. I'm a woman. We
Good.
multitask very efficiently.
I'm very bad at multitasking. It's good to know. I just do one thing at once and that's fine.
Okay. That might be a bit tight. I'm going to get you to open and close your hand for me. Perfect.
Yeah. I'm really interested to know sort of some of the, obviously not going into specifics, but the sorts of things that people have found from coming to see you and doing tests like this.
So I think the most common thing that people realize is one of two things. They realize that they can open up their diet and not eliminate quite so many things, because a lot of people go through life kind of thinking, okay, I'm allergic to dairy, I'm just going to take every single bit of dairy out of my diet. And then they come in and they realize that it's quite a specific allergy, and it is only a certain type of cheese maybe that they might be allergic to, whereas everything else is fine. So I think opening up your diet is something very important that people kind of realize they can do. And the other thing that I've had, which was very, very interesting. You okay? Okay, so we're in the vein, just drawing the blood. All we need is one little vial.
Perfect. This is good podcast listening, this bit.
I know, right? You can almost hear the blood drawing into the little vial.
I'm glad you're not multitasking just for this bit.
Well, to be honest with you, I could still keep talking. It's not going to make any difference. I just didn't want you to freak out.
Oh no, I'm all good. I'm all good.
Okay, so blood taken.
Right,
there
excellent.
We go.
Shall I hold that?
Yep, you squeeze down there for me.
Lovely.
Perfect. So basically, the most important thing is, you learn about yourself. When you do a test like that. And I think one of the things about being proactive about your health, especially after the whole pandemic, I think people are more interested in that, is that you then know what to do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, the prospect, thank you, of
Still going to get you pressed down for a bit.
Okay.
There we go.
The prospect, there you go, thank you, Alice, and I'll carry on holding that. The prospect of actually being able to reintroduce stuff is very tantalising. The one other question I wanted to ask you is that it's not actually just these tests that you do here. And having looked at your site before I came over, there's a wonderful array of things that you do, including various cryotherapy. Well, I've recorded a few whole body cryotherapy podcasts while I was doing the cryotherapy.
Wow.
But I know you offer quite a few interesting things here, don't you? So I just wanted to ask you about some of the other stuff you do.
So let me just tell you a little bit about myself, and then that will kind of segue into what we do here. So I trained as a medical doctor. Did my specialization in ENT surgery, so I was a head and neck surgeon. And then I kind of decided that I was very interested in allergies, and I went back to my alma mater and did a 3-year master's in allergies, and then decided that was what I was going to kind of spend my life doing. Now, when I found space in this amazing little clinic here, what I decided to do was kind of add on little treatments that I truly believed in, that I think enhance people's lives. And cryotherapy was one of those things. Now, we do cryo for chronic pain, we do cryo for people who have sports injuries, we also do cryotherapy for people who want to kind of build collagen and fibroblasts in their skin, and kind of give it a little lift, or a bit more of a youthful look. But it's non-invasive. There's no side effects. There's no downtime, so it kind of doesn't take you out of your regular life. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to it. Yeah.
Wow. So you have really dedicated your life to sort of allergies and intolerances and
effectively.
Food. I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? I was I heard on the radio this morning. They said, doctors have found that babies react to the foods that pregnant mothers eat in the womb. And I was like, well, we sort of realised that once our baby was born, our baby massively reacted to whether his mum was having milk or coffee or whatever it was. So it probably makes sense.
So I think when they say they've realized that babies in utero actually react to that, what they mean is they've done the studies. It's been knowledge for a while. It's just the studies now prove that they're right.
We took it very seriously, actually. And we sort of, Faith really modified her diet. She hated giving up coffee during pregnancy.
I know.
But she was grateful she did it afterwards.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony.
Good. Well, shall we stop recording now?
Yeah.
And we'll come back in a week or so's time. Thank you for making that such a painful process. It's really good to chat to you as well.
Painless?
Painless. I could edit that out, but I won't. Such a painful process. It's been awful. Listen, it's been a very painless process, and we'll chat again with the results.
Definitely.
And brilliant. Look forward to getting them.
I look forward to seeing you too.
Okay, thank you. Interrupting this podcast for one moment to talk about something very delicate, because today's podcast partner is Magnesium Breakthrough. And if you don't want to accidentally take a laxative, there's no real delicate way of saying this. If you don't want to have the worst day of your life, you need to listen to the next minute or so of this. Because if you're currently taking a magnesium supplement, chances are you're flushing it down the loo or the toilet. Whether you're in America or the US, we call it loo here in Britain. I mean that literally, because the most common type of magnesium is actually used as a laxative. So if you're taking it, you're literally pooping it. I told you there's no delicate way to say this. And that is why taking a decent magnesium supplement which covers all the bases is so important. Magnesium Breakthrough has 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually absorb. And it is just so important to get the right forms of magnesium. I'm recording this here on a work day in my office in West London. And got to tell you, it's a busy day. I'm sort of stressed. I'm type A as it is. I'm burning a lot of magnesium. I do need a good magnesium supplement, which is why I love Magnesium Breakthrough. And you've heard me talking about it a lot on this podcast. So you can go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology. Enter the code Zestology10 for 10% off any order. And I've got some great news for you, because if you're in the UK, you can use the code Zestology10 on the Bioptimizers UK site, which is bioptimizers.co.uk, and get 10% off all their products. So it's Zestology10 for 10% off any order. Make sure your magnesium isn't going straight down the toilet. Get a decent one. I told you it was a delicate chat we needed to have. Now, back to the show. Right, it's about a week later. Hi, Roshni.
Hey,
I'm back.
How are you doing, Tony?
Anthony. Oh, that's the first time Anthony's come up on the podcast.
It's a bit more formal, isn't
it? It's early in the morning. I've just come to the Wellness People Clinic, and looking forward to getting the results. So what did you find?
Great. So here's the report. As you can see, it is literally a 9-page report, which means we need to kind of go through things a bit more in detail. Let's just look at the first page to begin with. This is kind of a summary page. And if you can see, that's your name there, and it's done on the 26th of September. And that's me who did your bloods. And this is a summary page, okay? So it talks about all the different sections that we kind of tested. And if you can see, it covers like pollens, mites, microorganisms, plant-based foods, animal-based foods, insects and venoms, epithelial tissues of animals, which is basically pets and horses and stuff like that. And then other things like latex and parasites and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And here at the bottom of the first page, you see like a really nice color-coded chart. I'm going to show it to you a little bit bigger. There we go. So this is your indication of the amount of IgE being the antibody that's specifically produced to the allergen, which we discussed the last time. And if it falls in 0, which is clear, then it's negative and there's no reaction. If it falls in 1, there's tiny bit. We don't take that into account.
Okay.
When it's a 1, we tend to ignore it because it is so tiny, there is nothing you need to do about it. When it falls in this category, which is 2, and it's 1 to 5 kilo units,
Okay.
what we do is then we say, okay, Tony, so this thing falls in a 2, you need to just keep an eye and observe it, which means you do like a little diary. Every time you have a little bit of this food or you come into contact with this pet, you'll keep an eye on it and you'll just be like, actually, I have symptoms, or actually, I have no symptoms. But that's for you to decide. Because in a clinical picture, it shows that it could be either way.
Yeah.
Now, the serious things are when it falls into 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Because when it falls in category 3 or category 4, which is the orange and the red, it means that your body is reacting to it by producing lots of IgE, which means an allergic reaction is no doubt being stimulated. Okay, so that's that. Now, here is your total IgE.
Okay.
It's at 58 currently, and if you look at the total IgE guide, which weirdly sits at the end of the report.
Yeah.
So normal total IgE is usually under 20.
Okay.
And that's for people who are not allergic to anything. Okay. Between 20 and 100, allergy is definitely possible. And over 100, it's like without a doubt, you're probably having an allergic reaction right now.
Yeah.
Okay. That sort of thing. So yours is at 58, which means that you're in the allergy likely category. Now, let's move this on to looking at page 2, which is where most of your issues are. So, with regards to pollens, you must be having symptoms come hay fever time.
Yes, I am. So pollens come up very high in this report.
Pollens
I can see a lot of red on this
come up
page.
very high on this report. There is no doubt that you're reacting to it.
Okay.
And as you can see, we test for different proteins even within one type of grass.
Okay.
So these are the different proteins we test for, and it's all funny scientific names.
Yeah.
And these are the grasses. Now, if you think about it, with Timothy grass, which is literally everywhere if you're going out into the park, you're getting a reaction which is a 4, category 4, red, okay?
Category 4.
Category 4 disaster. No, that's not how we like to look at it.
Yeah.
And then you've got quite a few others that are in category 3, okay? And that is definitely going to cause you symptoms, and it's going to cause you symptoms in grass season. So grass season, weirdly, can start at the end of March and run all the way through to September. And so that's 6 months of the year when you can possibly be having symptoms. It might peak kind of June, July, and then it might kind of settle out again as it,
I can tell you exactly when mine is. Starts sort of end of April, gets bad around end of May, peaks middle of June, and then by the start of July, I've forgotten to take the tablets. It's fine.
Exactly. So that's exactly the kind of thing we're talking about. So it kind of picks up and drops off as the pollen counts go up and down.
Right.
And that is something that we've seen. Now, I am very, very pleased to report to you that you don't react to tree pollens.
Okay.
Completely fine. You are perfectly good with molds and all kinds of things. You're fine with house dust mites, which means you don't get sneezy and, watery-eyed just because you're in a dusty place, which is great.
That's great, because I've wondered with histamine intolerance symptoms whether that is down to mites.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely not. And then if you start looking at foods, you're absolutely fine with all sorts of food.
Great.
So I'm going to send you this report.
Yeah.
Because what it highlights is that you've got definite hay fever and grass pollen allergy to begin with. The other thing we've picked up is the fact that you react to wasp and different types of wasp venom.
Yes, and funnily enough, I got stung by a wasp for the first time in, probably 40 years this summer.
Okay.
And it was an extraordinary reaction. My whole arm was red for about a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with wasp venom, the thing about it is the first sting is usually just a precursor. You don't have full-on reaction to that. You can see that because your body has already been stung, you've been primed, your immune system has been primed. So when we put your blood with wasp venom allergen, it's binding and creating IgE, which is what's happening here. Which means the next time you have a wasp bite, you're going to have a reaction as well. And that's what this is telling us. So it's something that you need to keep an eye on. It's something that you possibly might want to do something about. There are allergy units that actually specialize in doing wasp venom treatment.
Okay.
They start with small doses, but it's injections.
Okay.
And you need to be observed.
Okay.
After it. It's not the simple kind of under your tongue stuff that we treat.
It's not that bad though, is it? If I get stung by another wasp, I'll be all right.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yes, Tony. I wish for you to be all right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Other than that, Tony, to be honest with you, we've tested for almost 300 different allergens.
Wow.
And you are doing really well.
So can I ask you a couple of questions then?
Yes,
I mean, firstly, that's
go
sort of,
for it.
in terms of the food, that's actually really good news.
It's really
because,
encouraging.
Obviously one of the most important priorities with histamine intolerance and with allergy or intolerance-like symptoms is to get to the bottom of why, so it can stop happening.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, it might be intolerances or allergies to foods.
Yep.
But for a lot of people, it might be something else.
Exactly.
And for me, I think there's a real genetic component to unlock, which is interesting.
Yep.
But presumably, other people will come and you'll go through that, and it might not show up for grass pollen and bee stings at all, but there'll be loads of foods.
Exactly right. And the thing about the way the immune system works is that it's almost like a thumbprint. It is so individualized. Everyone's reaction is going to be different. There are some people that react to brown shrimp but don't react to white shrimp. There's some people who react to cooked eggs but not to raw egg. So it's going to be completely different from person to person. And, it's just worthwhile knowing where you stand with regards to your body.
And the other question I've got is that I know, for example, that both brown shrimp and white shrimp I do react to because of histamine intolerance.
Absolutely.
But that's a different thing to having an allergic reaction.
Completely different thing, because as we discussed before, with histamine intolerance, it's frequently because diamine oxidase enzyme is not in the right amount of quantity and therefore is not efficiently breaking it down, and your symptoms are because the foods are allowed longer periods of time in your body and therefore have a chance to release the histamine, and the histamine's not being broken down, and there you go. So you get symptoms from that.
Yeah. Wow, I can't wait to have a look at that. But I'm sort of pleased, actually, because I think, if I can get to the bottom of the histamine intolerance, which I'm doing...
Which you're doing.
Then
and you're
brown
addressing.
shrimp and white shrimp will be on the menu.
Absolutely.
I don't even really know the difference. But
Well,
look, thank you so much. And you're here in Notting Hill, aren't you, if other people want to come and see you. And I know, because I posted a week or two ago when I came in, there were a lot of comments, weren't there, from people asking all sorts of questions about this testing.
And it's really interesting, the kind of questions that people are wondering about, So yes, I'm here, happy to answer questions, happy to do consultations, and happy to help people find out exactly what they're allergic to.
Yeah, and I think because you're so well steeped in this world, you really do get histamine intolerance. You know about DAO and all that sort of thing, which is really reassuring, actually. Yeah. So thank you. We'll put a link to the clinic in the show notes, and thanks again. I'll look forward to digging into my results.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to send that to you so you can sit and really ponder on it and break it all down. But if you have any questions, ask away.
All right, thanks, Roshni, and I think you're probably the first QPR fan to come on this podcast as well, which is quite something. Yay. I thought I was the only one.
No.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
That is it for this podcast. I've just left Dr. Roshni's surgery in Notting Hill, come down to my office in Shepherd's Bush, just a few minutes away, and I've just found a small corner in the printer room just to say thanks again to Roshni. That was really, really enjoyable, and I've just been digging through my results, and it is fascinating to see that, and actually I feel great that I don't have the sort of intolerances to food that I thought I would, in terms of you get the histamine intolerance, right? Then I can eat everything. Brilliant. Really interesting around the grass allergy stuff and the pollen stuff as well. And please do check out the Wellness People and mention me if you go and see Roshni as well. This podcast is brought to you by Bioptimizers and Magnesium Breakthrough. And if you go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology, you can get a special offer if you enter Zestology 10. Now, if you don't want to accidentally take a laxative and have the worst day of your life, just listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because if you're currently taking a magnesium supplement, chances are you're flushing it down the toilet. And I mean that literally, because the most common forms of magnesium just sort of are used as a laxative. There's no other way of putting it. That's what happens. I can't sort of say it delicately. You're basically pooping it out and peeing it out. And what you want is a magnesium with 7 different forms in it. You've heard me talking about Magnesium Breakthrough before. You know that I've been talking about it for over a year on Zestology, and I do believe magnesium is just so important for me, for inflammation, definitely. Excuse me. I've been playing a lot of tennis recently, a lot of paddle tennis, which is a really cool, fun form of tennis, and I sort of get a bit achy the next day. Extra magnesium. magbreakthrough.com/zestology and enter the code zestology10 for 10% off any order. That is it for this podcast. Shall I tell you what's coming up in the next couple of weeks? Yes, I will. Because next week we've got Don Moxley on the podcast talking about spermidine, this miracle anti-aging compound, which I'm really looking forward to. And then after that, one of the top influences in terms of cutting down your alcohol intake. And the way that I met Sassy Sober Mum is a story in itself. That is coming in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for listening to Zestology. Do go and check out Roshni and the Wellness People, and I'll see you next time.